Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to catch up because we did a podcast that we published back in June, and we did the whole background story of how Wistia was started and lots of great information of where you got to at that point. And I was also proud because I think we debuted the background studio that was new and fresh at the time.
Is that this right here?
Yeah.
Yes. I believe that that was the debut of the Blockbuster set.
It's amazing. It's still, I can get lost in all those VCR tapes to figure out what the, so, we did a great job talking about the background story and what you guys are up to. But since then, there's been some really, really amazing announcements and new series that you get. Like, I'm a fan of Brandwagon, and I love the whole concept of how you took the car and, Chris Levine and how that all came about, plus the useful content of interviewing, Brian Halligan from HubSpot and, marketing execs from MailChimp and all the other great companies. So bring us up to speed on what's going on at Wistia.
Yeah, so a lot has happened since we spoke. So first, Brandwagon, we launched a talk show for marketers. I sat down with a bunch of CMOs, CEOs, different creative folks, like the VP of brand at MailChimp. I sat down with one of the world's, like the creative director at Universal McCann, which is one of the world's most successful and largest creative agencies. And a lot of the conversation was basically how do you build a brand today? What does that look like? What are people doing? Who should we look up to? And it was kind of meta also because we made a show about this, talking about how to build a brand. And a number of the people we spoke with are also making shows to build their brands, which led us up to a big launch called Change the Channel, which we did at the beginning of October, talking really about where we think the future of brand marketing is going. And, to go into that just a little bit, the idea is we think that, brand marketing has always been important, but it's been kind of this mysterious thing. Like, what do you do to build a great brand? How do you get people to spend time with your brand, know what your brand's values are? How do you do it in a logical, repeatable fashion? And what we've seen happening is that a lot of the world's best brands are already shifting their budgets and strategies and approaches from using or relying on brand advertising, which historically has been basically how people use marketing to get their brand messages out there. And instead they're making content. They're making original series, they're making podcasts, they're making video shows. And we think that the other big thing that's shifted is a focus from just trying to get awareness, where awareness of your brand, people knowing what your company is important, but it's not enough to just know a brand anymore. Like early days of the web, you might be the only company doing something. And if people know you, it takes off. It's not the early days anymore. That's not how it works. You need to have people actually have affinity for your brands. And to do that, they either have to spend time with your product, have a great customer experience, or you have to give them content that really resonates with them and is usually longer, like something that they can spend more time with so that they can actually build a connection with your brand.
Well, I think what, you mentioned MailChimp as, a company that was on your show. So they have a series where it's totally different. So they have Shirley Manson doing a podcast.
Yeah.
And, she's, lead singer of Garbage, which is one of my favorite bands, being a product of the grunge era. And, she interviewed Courtney Love from, Kurt Cobain and Hole fame. So that's, one of those things where that's not necessarily, hey, we're going to talk about email marketing and marketing automation and everything that MailChimp is thinking of.
Yeah, so it's really, really interesting because the MailChimp example is such a good one. MailChimp does amazing brand marketing. I think we all remember their cereal ad, the MailChimp ad. And what they saw is that they were spending a lot of money on trying to rent people's audiences, putting an ad in a podcast, putting a billboard in front of people driving, doing digital brand advertising. And the problem is that you're renting time. And so it gets more expensive to rent the time, and the ad, you stop paying and no one sees the ad. And they just started to realize, given how much they're investing and where everything is going, they wanted to be the content instead of being the ad. And so the values that they want to instill through their marketing is really actually exactly the same thing that they're trying to instill through their advertising. Their advertising was all about empowering small business owners to feel like the entrepreneurial journey, they're not alone. That's basically been what they've been doing forever. If you follow MailChimp closely, a couple of years ago, they're totally private, but they disclose all their revenue. They've made a crazy rebrand. They've done a lot of crazy rebrands where you look at it and you're like, how could any company do this? And the point is they're being their weird selves and it's working, and you can be your weird self too. They're like a partner to you in the sense that an emotional partner. And in their content, they're trying to do the same thing. So if you listen to Shirley's podcast, it's the story of people who were trying to build something. And it's like the highs and the lows of building something. So if you're a small business owner and you happen to also be into grunge music, that you're going to be a fan potentially of this podcast. And the goal is that it makes you feel like you're not alone, like you can do it, like other people have done it before. So they're trying to get the same exact brand feeling across as they did in their advertising, but they're doing it with content instead. And it's wild. Like they've gone so far away from email and marketing tools. But when you start to look at it through that lens of all of this content is trying to empower someone in small business to not feel like the entrepreneurial journey is so scary, it actually all is exactly the same. And it's a really empowering thing because when you figure it out, it opens up this enormous realm of content that you can go after. And you don't have to monetize because you're not monetizing with advertising. It changes the math too on like what it means to be popular and successful.
What is exciting about Wistia is you guys had some major product announcements that have to do with the emergence of how companies need to think about their marketing strategy as it relates to being more of like a studio. So what does that mean?
Yeah, so we launched a bunch of features that are designed to help you market your content. So, I think the B2B content marketing playbook has been like, write a blog post, maybe email it, put it on social. That's kind of what you do. And you hope that it'll get indexed and people will eventually find your stuff and you'll have people make it your way to your site, which is good. I'm not saying that's not good, but that's the normal playbook. When you start dealing with like longer form content and you start dealing with richer media, there's actually many different things you can do to market the content itself than you could when you're just writing a blog post. Like it doesn't make sense to take out tons and tons and tons of ads normally to a blog post because like the ad doesn't return on what you're getting, like at the end of the day. Where if you have like a feature-length documentary, people are okay with seeing trailers and okay with seeing ads because if they think they're gonna learn something and it's gonna educate them and it's gonna inspire them or cause them to do something different, they're willing to put up with the ad. There's actually more meat in the content, which gives you so many different ways to promote it. And so what we launched at Change the Channel was like a totally new version of this product we call Wistia Channels, which allows you to make a error on your website, no coding required. You just like literally 3 clicks in Wistia, you can do this. And you can make it it looks like a Netflix-like viewing experience, like background videos when you're playing. It's kind of like a theater mode, up next kind of functionality, all that kind of stuff that you would want to allow someone to binge watch your content. And then they can also subscribe in the way that they could with like a YouTube channel. But instead of like it being its own subscription where YouTube ends up ultimately controlling and owning how you can interact with your audience, with us, you're just getting emails. So you're getting email addresses and you own your audience. Like if you want to leave Wistia, you keep your audience. And so it's really just tools to help you get the content out there, promote it. We have some advertising tools that we've built so you can market to people who are your biggest fans. You can look for people who look like that by some integrations we've done with Facebook. So yeah, it's really just like when you start making longer form content and content that's more valuable, you want to market it differently, and it's tools to help you do that.
And you guys witnessed this firsthand when you did your documentary, 110-100, and you saw just what that ended up producing as far as views, engagements, and knowing the audience too, which that's the key.
It was amazing. I mean, it was funny. 110-100 was, it was a surprise in the sense that we started documenting this creative process. We were really excited about documenting it. It was going to be, we gave Sandwich Video $111,000 to make us 3 ads with different budgets. One with $1,000 budget, one with a $10,000 budget, one with a $100,000 budget. We thought this would be interesting. We documented, maybe we'd end up with like a guide on the website or some big blog posts. And the team came back from shooting the first 2 videos, the $1,000 and the $10,000 budget videos. And they're like, this is not a guide. This is not a blog post. This is like a longer form thing. We ended up with a feature documentary that's like 1 hour and 42 minutes long. And when we were looking at this thing, it's like, this is actually really good. But we should really try to get this in front of people. How should we do that? We're like, well, we should make a trailer. We made a trailer. We should premiere this in theaters, which we did. We then thought we should take clips from it and put that all across social. So if you engage the clip, you would come back in and maybe want to watch the whole thing. And this campaign, just 2 months into it, there have been more time spent with our brand through people watching 110-100, a piece of content about like budgets for video content, when we're at that time, like thinking of ourselves like a video platform, is related, but still kind of separate. There've been more time spent with our brand in 2 months than had been spent with our brand in the previous year. Across every single market activity we had done, every blog post, every webinar, every video, every event, everything. And then it lifted the business. So we saw brand search for Wistia start to go up quite a bit. We saw direct traffic start to go up. So people typing in Wistia direct or telling each other about it. And that meant that our best source of customers are people who come direct to the site. And so suddenly this piece of content about budgets had turned into this thing that was growing our customer base. And it was like mind-boggling that this content was doing that, and that we had so much opportunity to promote it. I mean, we launched that over a year ago, and it's still being promoted, and people are still finding it because it's evergreen in a way that an ad is not.
And that's key, like evergreen content and owning your audience too. That's so important, where if you do have it on other platforms or social channels, you don't necessarily know the granular detail of who watched their email, to be able to market to them in the future. Now, along with this is obviously growth of the team at Wistia, which is super exciting too. So let's talk about the details in terms of hiring and building out the team.
Yeah, so we're looking for a few different marketing roles right now to help us build out Wistia Studios and to help us like build up our marketing team. We've got a lot of good work to do. So we're looking for a director of audience development. That's someone to come and build audiences for the shows themselves. Brandwagon, we put out this year. We have more shows that are coming out next year, and we're looking for folks who have been in the media world who can help us do that. We're also looking for a director of customer acquisition and growth as we start to ramp up customer acquisition for people who are doing brand affinity marketing. So yeah, there's also a few other marketing roles we're looking for. So looking for a lot of marketing roles at the moment.
Well, let's talk in detail about the director of customer acquisition and growth. Like, what do you think that person will be responsible for, and then the type of person that you're ideally targeting as far as background?
Yeah, so we're looking for somebody who to really own like demand generation. Where are our customers hanging out today that are our potential customers? How are we going to bring them in? How are we going to give them an amazing experience on the site and through the app to help them get on board? How do you integrate all of the stuff the data that's coming in and the customers that are coming in, and make sure that the right people are talking to them at the right times, which I think is also like really critically important. And I think ideally the person who's coming in for that role has experience in SaaS. They're like really good with the numbers, but they also are really good at hunting out like the new opportunities that are going to present themselves for where people are spending their time and how we can connect with them. So part of this will be interfacing with our studios team and like talking about the content that we're making and like making sure that is aligned with where you think people are hanging out. And a lot of it is like being willing to be the person like trying totally new stuff. In a lot of respects, like the Change the Channel event for us was actually like a huge moment in shifting the business. And we're solving a broader set of problems. And so there's a much broader set of potential customers we want to talk to.
So why is now the ideal time to join Wistia?
I think 2 years ago we did a buyback, and I think we've talked about that before, but we had the opportunity to sell the business, and instead of selling it, we realized, my co-founder Brendan and I, that we want to run this for the long term. We want to build a really creative business, and we want to take bigger, more long-term risks. Like we want to be able to trust our guts and follow the trends and see where things are going. And I think fortunately that's really proved out to be true. So we've ended up becoming really profitable. We were able to refinance our debt. That allowed us to run the business even, more confidently. And I think we're at this amazing moment where the team is stronger than it's ever been. Customers are really happy, very high NPS. We've spotted a bunch of new things. And so we need the best to come and like invent the future. And so it's like really fun. We have a lot of resources. You're required to do your work creatively. And I think it's just a culture of trust. Just like, I think it allows people, everyone, I think if you were to ask people here today if they're doing their best work, I think 98% of people would say that they are.
Well, if you are interested in exploring opportunities at Wistia, you can check out all their job openings. And I'll tell you, if I was a marketer, to deal with a company like Wistia and their brand, I mean, it's just one of those brands that resonates with companies just like MailChimp does. So go to their biz page, check out their job openings at venturefizz.com/Wistia, and you'll see all their listings there. Chris, thanks so much for taking the time to bring us up to speed on all the great things going on at Wistia.
Thanks for having me.